Okay, so it's been a long time since I've done a true deck guide for a card game, so hopefully I'm not too rusty. Anyway, welcome to the very first Legends of Runeterra deck guide on this YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about Lux Heimerdinger Control. This deck has personally been my favorite Heimerdinger deck ever since it first became a thing during open beta. In fact, Riot even hinted at the synergy between Lux and Heimerdinger when Lux received her first buff in the very first balance patch ever during the preview patch days. So there's a few lists for this deck going around, but this is my personal take on the deck and where I'm at with it right now, meaning this list could and most likely will change. So always check the link to all my public decks in the video description to get the latest version of any of my decks, including this one. In fact, there is already a caveat with this deck list, but we will get into that later. Before we get started, if you guys want to see more content like this, let me know by hitting the like button and leaving a comment below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell icon below so you don't miss any future guides that we do if this one is well received. So to start things off, let's talk about what the goal of this deck is and how it wins. It's actually very similar to the popular Vi Heimerdinger Control deck that runs Ionia cards instead of Demacia cards. We want to control the board until we get to a point to where we can safely play Heimerdinger, and then protect him as much as possible while he makes turrets for every spell that we play. In particular, we want to play 3 mana spells because while Heimerdinger does generate a specific turret based on the mana cost of the spell we play, the 3 mana spells generate elusive turrets that are 3/1s, which is overall the best turret that Heimerdinger can make. We then use these elusive turrets to deal damage until we win. Going into Demacia instead of Ionia allows us to have Lux as a backup win condition, since she generates final spark spells that cost 0 mana once she levels up. They deal 4 damage to an enemy unit, and it's the only damage dealing spell in the game that has Overwhelm, as long as we spend at least 6 mana in a turn playing spells. So she kind of adds redundancy to this deck in the sense that both champions do similar things. You're either playing spells to make elusive turrets and dealing damage with those, or you're playing spells to make final sparks to clear your opponent's board and deal damage to their nexus at the same time. So in a way, it's almost like you're running 6 Heimerdingers, which is something Demacia offers that Ionia can't really. It's one of the reasons why I think this Heimerdinger list isn't strictly worse than Vi Heimerdinger. Another reason being that this deck fights for board a little bit better than Vi Heimer does if you don't find any champions in the early to mid game, meaning this deck, while still bad against aggro, doesn't do quite as bad against it as Vi Heimer. But now that we know how this deck wins, let's go over the list, and I'm going to do my best to highlight certain strategies and things to look for during games when using some of these cards, as well as go over the reasoning behind each card and possible changes for some of the cards. Towards the end, we'll talk about mulligans and some matchup strategies against the most popular decks in the game right now. Granted, we are going to have a preview patch next week. Not a preview patch, a balance patch next week. But with that in mind, let's get into it. First, let's talk about Thermogenic Beam. This card scales very well into the late game, meaning it's a removal spell that stays relevant since the damage it deals is equal to the amount of mana you have left, and this will always spend all of your remaining mana, including spell mana. It's one of the only spells that Piltover's on has to deal with big units that have high health, and in particular has excellent synergy with Heimerdinger because it can technically make any turret you want at any mana cost up to 8 mana, where you get an 8/8 T-Hex. For this reason, while you can play this card in other Piltover's on decks, Thermal Beam is at its best in Heimerdinger decks. Against very aggressive decks like Burn Aggro or Noxus Elusives, don't be afraid to spend only 1 or 2 mana on this card to remove their early units, since you need to stay alive at all costs in those matchups. Saving removal for value is less important against those decks since they don't play anything particularly big. All right, so on to the 2-mana cards. First up is Mage Seeker Persuader. Solid 2-mana unit in this deck, since we're playing Lux and we're playing cards like Remembrance and Unyielding Spirit. This is decent as a 3/2 unit to block early game units coming from aggro decks and other faster mid-range decks like Tempo Sejuani, but it gets even better once activated as a 4/3 with Challenger. Persuader is one of the few ways this deck can access a Challenger unit. The other two being Final Spark with Heimerdinger on board to get a 0-mana turret with Challenger, and the Swiftwing Lancer you can get from Remembrance. A 4/3 Challenger takes out quite a few of the popular units you'll see on ladder, and potentially allows your non-elusive turrets to deal Nexus damage or keep your Lux safe if you're attacking with her. Mystic Shot, staple card in P and Z decks. 2 mana, deal 2 damage to anything, is very, very flexible. There's really not much else to say. There are very few decks where this card doesn't cleanly remove units, but even in those matchups, you're gonna find some type of use for Mystic Shot, and it can go directly to the face to burn your opponent out and close the game if they're low enough. All right, so our 3-mana cards are Flash of Brilliance, Get Excited, Prismatic Barrier, Succession, and Vanguard Redeemer. Let's start with Flash of Brilliance. So there are other decks now where this card has some potential. Lee Sin comes to mind, but this card is still the best in Heimerdinger decks. This allows you to have powerful turns with Heimerdinger where you can play him, then play 1 to 2 of these and make multiple elusive turrets at burst speed, meaning your opponent can't respond to it. And you'll still have spell mana left over to play something else if needed. Granted, you usually can't play the spell you get off of Flash of Brilliance on the same turn, since it costs 6 or more, but this card just gives you additional value for very little cost in this deck. Never play a Heimerdinger deck without this card. It's a staple. All right, next we have Get Excited. Similar to Mystic Shot, this is a flexible card that deals 3 damage to anything you want. This was considered a staple in every Piltover and Zon deck during open beta, but with the release of Rising Tides, it now has competition from the new Gotcha spell. We're running Get Excited still in this deck because we have ways of creating cards that we can discard to get excited through the bad spells that Flash of Brilliance gives you. And believe it or not, Heimerdinger. What I mean by that is, don't be afraid to discard some of your weaker turrets to this card, although that will come up less in this deck than in something like Vi Heimerdinger. Also, Get Excited makes elusive turrets, and Gotcha doesn't. All right, Prismatic Barrier. If there is one thing I've learned from Vi Heimerdinger is that you absolutely need a 3-mana spell that protects your champions. It specifically needs to cost 3 mana because the idea is that you want to have 3 spell mana saved up by the time you get to round 5, where you would have 5 of your regular mana. That way, you can play Heimerdinger, and if your opponent does have removal, you can protect Heimerdinger with that spell and get an elusive turret out of it. Vi Heimerdinger lists that run Ionia cards use Twin Disciplines for that role, so the same concept applies here. In the case of this deck, since we don't have access to Twin Disciplines, we're running Prismatic Barrier instead, because that's what Demacia gives us. This protection does extend towards Lux as well, even though she's tougher to remove. If your opponent does try to use 2 cards to kill Lux, you have the Prismatic Barrier as backup just in case. And next we have Succession. This is a card that has seen play in this deck in the past, but is definitely not standard. At first I really didn't like this card, but I've come around to it in recent testing. This used to be Mage Seeker Conservator, which was decent since it was a 1-mana 1/1 that gave you a 6+ mana spell when it died that you could use for Get Excited fodder if the spell was bad, but it was nothing special beyond that. Basically, you want to play this on round 2 because you will have 1 spell mana going into round 2 in most cases, since you don't have a 1-mana card to play in this deck other than Thermogenic Beam. But again, you're only going to be playing that round 1 in very specific matchups. So a 3/3 on round 2 is very powerful since it's bigger than all the popular 1 and 2 drops that current tier 1 decks are playing right now. Units that are 2/3s are very popular right now, as well as 1 drops that are 1/1s and 2/1s. And the Dauntless Vanguard that Succession makes beats up on all of them. And because the spell costs 3, it also makes an elusive turret. Another card you could try over this is Chempunk Pickpocket, which is solid because even though it's only a 3/2, it does steal the spell from your opponent's deck if it hits the Nexus, which is huge. Chempunk Pickpocket is the type of card that demands to be answered or it'll run away with the game, meaning it has synergy with Remembrance since it'll die pretty often and make your Remembrance cost 5 on certain turns. But I've been liking Succession so far, and for now I prefer the 1 extra health and the ability to dominate the board early on against faster decks, and the elusive turret is nice. And the last 3 mana card is Vanguard Redeemer. This is the caveat I was talking about in the beginning. This is a flex slot. I wanted to try Redeemer out since she could potentially draw Lux or Heimerdinger if I haven't seen either of them yet during a game, and the chance is fairly high since this deck runs very few actual units as is, especially since Succession and Remembrance count as spells, so Redeemer will never pull those cards even though they make units. Redeemer's been okay, but she's a little inconsistent. In fact, at this point, I would run single combat over this after testing Redeemer out. But I left the list as is since all the gameplay I'll be showing after this is with Redeemer in the deck and 0 single combats. If you insist on still running Redeemer, I would say don't be afraid to just play Redeemer out on turn 3 if you need a blocker against faster decks that are beating you down. All right, on to the only 5 mana spell that we're running in this deck, Detain. This is kind of another flex slot. Some lists run 1 copy of this card, other lists don't run any at all. Personally, I think you do need Detain somewhere in this deck, as it's the only way to deal with Unyielding Spirit outside of Purify, which isn't guaranteed to work. Ironically, it has excellent synergy with Unyielding Spirit against decks that don't run the specific cards to remove an invincible unit, since you can use your Unyielding unit to capture any threat that you're having a problem with. You can also capture your own unit that's being targeted by removal, and if the unit you used to capture your other unit dies, you get that first unit back. You could cheat and run Mage Seeker Investigator over Vanguard Redeemer, for example, as a way of accessing Detain and freeing up deck slots to play other cards. But the Detain she generates is less powerful because your opponents know you have the card in hand, so they'll try to play around it and force you to use it in awkward situations. Next, we have Radiant Guardian. Solid unit that's a good target to use for Detains if she's fully activated because of her tough keyword. This is excellent against aggro when fully activated as well. In fact, aggro decks will play around this card since she ends the game on her own against them. If your aggro opponent is refusing to kill your own units to deny the lifesteal from Radiant Guardian, don't be afraid to just drop her down and threaten to kill them, since you need to kill the aggro deck before they kill you anyway. Let's move on to Remembrance, since we've pretty much already covered the champions in the beginning. Remembrance is one of the main reasons to use Demacia over Ionia when playing Heimerdinger. This is a staple, not so much because we're running Heimerdinger, but because we're running Lux. You usually want this in your opening hand against most decks, since you're able to play it as early as round 3 if you don't spend mana on anything else in the first 2 rounds. Getting any of the 5 mana units this card generates on round 3 is extremely powerful, since most decks don't have a way of dealing with that big of a unit that early on. Remembrance also automatically levels up Lux when played for the full 6 mana. It activates your Mage Seeker and generates a 6/1 Overwhelm turret if Heimerdinger is in play, which is decent. Some of the units that Remembrance generates are better than others, but none of them are truly bad. And the final card we're going to be talking about is Unyielding Spirit. This is one of the other reasons to use Demacia over Ionia when playing Heimerdinger Control, and yet another reason why I don't think this deck is strictly worse than Viheimer. Outside of Will of Ionia, the ways of dealing with an Unyielding Spirit unit are extremely narrow, and most decks aren't willing to run those answers. We're talking Detain, Purify, and other cards that either obliterate units from the game entirely or shuffle the unit back into an opponent's deck. So basically, only Ionia decks, Demacia decks, and Sea Monster decks can efficiently deal with Unyielding Spirit. I've seen lists run 3 copies of these. I'm only running 2, since the card can feel clunky at times. The idea, however, is to get one of your champions on the board and protect them for a turn, then play Unyielding Spirit on them. Most decks just can't deal with that. This is the only 8-mana spell I would consider a must in this deck at some number of copies. It makes T-Hex when Heimer is in play and automatically levels up Lux if she's in play. All right, so in terms of the mulligans and a few general strategies for this deck, for the mulligans in general, you want to look for Heimerdinger, Remembrance, and 1 early interaction card against most decks. And by 1 early interaction card, I mean a removal spell like Thermogenic Beam, Mystic Shot, and Get Excited. Succession and Mage Seeker Persuader are also early interaction cards, since you can put them on the board starting on round 2. Flash of Brilliance, and to a much, much lesser extent, Prismatic Barrier, should only be kept if you already have Heimerdinger in your hand. There are some specifics when it comes to certain matchups. Against Endure, you actually don't want Mystic Shot because it doesn't efficiently kill anything. Against faster decks like Tempo Sejuani, Elusives, or basically anything aggro, you want at least 2 early game cards that are either units or removal. Removal spells in particular against elusive decks, and actually against elusives on aggro, I would maybe even throw back Heimerdinger and Remembrance to find removal and cheap units, because Heimerdinger and Remembrance they're just too slow against them. You just need stuff to either block with in the case of Tempo Sejuani, or to outright kill their units in the case of elusives or any aggro deck. Versus slower decks like Deep and other Heimerdinger decks, you mulligan super hard for Heimerdinger and Remembrance. Against scout decks in particular, it's more of a middle ground. You can keep something like Remembrance, but you're probably in better shape if you find your 2-drops and Thermogenic Beam, since they're pretty aggressive. Anyway, that's it. That's the deck. I'm gonna have some gameplay coming up in just a second here, so stay tuned for that. Again, if you like the video, feel free to hit the like button below, and let me know if you want to see more of this type of content by leaving a comment down below as well. And follow me on Twitch. I stream Legends of Runeterra live on Twitch 4 days a week, so you can catch me there as well. And yeah, that's it. Stay tuned for the gameplay, and I'll see you guys next time. Kind of been trying to study up on Lux Heimerdinger. Let me try to make it work. This seems like Tempo Sejuani with Twisted Fate. I think in this matchup I don't know if we want all of these per se. I'm thinking keeping Succession and Get Excited. We really want, in general, we're looking for Remembrance, Heimerdinger. That's just in general, but this particular matchup can be pretty aggressive. Let's try the double Succession. Might be better to go to have Succession Get Excited. It's more of a balance thing, but okay, so they're gonna get a this deck's pretty aggressive. We need to make sure we can keep up. I think Heimer is still the win con for sure, but we don't have Remembrance, so we're not even gonna play for it. Oh, well, otherwise we take a few hits. Okay, so it seems like they're gonna set up potentially a Make It Rain turn here into
I will hold the line. Take my element.
play another Succession here. We held out pretty well. I don't think I want to spend mana here in case I draw Heimerdinger, because now that we drew Flash of Brilliance. I don't want to spend more than... There's nothing I want to actually play. Alright, that's fine. So they have a card of mine. Let's just see if we find Heimer here. We didn't, that's okay. If they go for the attack here, we can block, and if our Vanguard dies, we can just drop Guardian down.
The ocean charts our course.
Which is pretty nice. Could technically go for the get excited here, technically. The problem is there's nothing I really want to discard. It would just suck if they had pilfered goods here. That's the only bad thing. The problem is I could yeah, I think we chill here. We definitely chill here. Because the problem is, if I go for get excited and kill the 1/2, on the second attack, they're still going to be able to get me. So we just let them have the pilfered goods. Like, even if I can kill one, I can't block everything. Oh, they went for the double pilfered goods. They have 5 cards in hand or they're mine. It's these 4, and then this one that's next to the warning shot. So I'll block here, that's fine. They don't want to lose their 3/3.
Justice will be served.
We will actually have Unyielding Spirit next turn. They didn't get Detain here, which is good. I think we're good. I don't think they have an answer to this, like, at all. In that entire deck. So they can Sejuani, they can do whatever they want. Also, they have Sejuani on defense, so our Detains are looking really good here.
Fortune favors the bold.
That is cool with me. Could've went this for 1. Alright, well, now that they played Monkey Idol, I'm not even gonna bother. I might even go ahead and alright. Only bad thing will be if they just go with
Always forward. Stay back.
if I play Lux here, what does that mean? I don't think I can play Lux yet. Maybe I can, but Lux seems kind of meh. Let's pass for now and see what they do. Surely they'll attack again.
Hold back the darkness.
Love ya. Let the light guide you.
Yeah, we'll try Lux here. I don't have any real defense though.
Hey TF, how's the partner?
Pretty good. Quit smoking.
I haven't heard that line in a while from TF. It's always kind of funny. I used to hear it a lot when TF first started getting played. I'll try and take him out here. He has 4 mana open. Fury of the North is a possibility. They wanted a Remembrance. Okay.
Strike for justice.
I think we can attack here. So it's just leveled. We have a couple targets here for just need to see what they're gonna do. I think I will detain. Pretty sure I'm going to. I could flash since I still don't have Heimer yet. Like just play the flash and then pass back, see what they want to do. Alright. I still don't want to do anything. Interesting. I'll kill the monkey idol then.
I've been hiding my light too long.
Now they take the full 4 because of that.
No more holding back.
So they did take an unyielding spirit from me. So I need to keep that in mind. I only run 2. So I'm not going to be able to draw any more unyielding spirits. But they'll never get this MF back. She's just gone for the rest of the game. Since again, they have no answer to an unyielding spirit unit. Yeah, there we go. It's just kind of inevitable. Even though they actually had card advantage. Although almost half their hand was still my cards. But I knew they didn't have they had no answer because out of all the cards they stole, the only thing that actually answers an unyielding spirit in my deck is Detain. And I had one Detain in hand and I drew the other one after they stole a bunch of cards. So if they had stolen one more card, they would have had an answer. Alright, so Endure. I think the only card we want out of this is Succession, I believe. I'm gonna mulligan a little bit harder for Remembrance and Heimerdinger. I'll keep the Succession. Alright, we didn't get them. Mystic Shot is the one thing we actually don't want.
What's that noise?
Unfortunately. So this is Bruised by God's list. Because he's the only one that actually runs Sejuani. But Mystic Shot doesn't really, well, if this was the Elise list, Mystic Shot wouldn't do much. I honestly think it...
I still see far and clear.
I still think Mystic Shot doesn't even do much, even here. They could Blighted Caretaker here. Kalista's not safe. We'll take Kalista out. And I will give up Mystic Shot.
What does he want from me? For the homestead. Face me.
So I'm doing it this way so to play around the Croc turn next turn. Because he needs 2 units to play Croc. If I block this 1/1, he just gets another 1/1. So well, they could play another drop here. They have 2 mana. Alright, so that's the line. So here I think we open attack.
Attack formation.
Since this is the turn. Alright. That tells me they don't have Croc in hand.
That egg. Did it move?
That's what that tells me. I'll pass here. We have Heimer into Prismatic Barrier next turn. Do we let them have this? I guess so. we can't afford to barrier this. And I'm not really in the business of yeah, that's fine. Could redeem her. It's a possibility. I won't though. I think Heimer into barrier is too important. Instead of waiting. Sej is at 3 out of 5 now.
Eminently logical.
I want Remembrance too, but that's alright. Alright, let's chill here. Let's go for Remembrance. We might be able to get the Lancer. Yeah, if we got the Lancer, it would have been dope. But, oh well.
Find them, catch them.
Yeah.
A machine for sports ball.
I'm gonna get excited, this. I'm hoping they don't have another Vile Feast. Mystic Shot's gonna be pretty useful here.
My most groundbreaking invention to date.
This is tough. I think our plan here is to kind of just stall the 7/7 with our ground turrets, and then use our elusive turrets to try and win. I think BBG does not run Withering Wail. I think he only runs Vile Feast, Glimpse Beyond, Vengeance, and I forget the third shadow spell. But they're all shadow spells. He runs no Freljord spells. The only way he has access to Fury of the North is if he plays Sejuani.
One's a garden.
They have to attack now.
Come this way.
That's fine. We can block here. And go to 8. This is 5/4.
Determine themselves.
Sure.
A sturdy construction.
I need to try and get them to spend mana here. Yeah, I knew it. Jeez, dude. Okay. They have to use the 2/1 to trade. Yeah. We'll go Redeemer into Radiant Guardian here. Okay.
Today we turn the tide of war. I fight for the fallen.
Yeah, that's tough. They had the double Vile Feast. That's super tough. And if they have Atrocity behind that, they just had a really good draw. If they have Atrocity here, they just drew extremely well. Because they didn't even cast Glimpse Beyond once this game. That's the part that sucks. I can Succession, or I can Remembrance here. Like, I'm blocking this no matter what, right? So, how are they gonna attack? And that's my, I think we could Succession first. And then I may even get excited, discard Vanguard Redeemer. Yeah, they drew extremely well. That's the absolute best draw they could have had. They didn't cast Glimpse Beyond once, not one time, the whole game. I want to at least get 4 wins, because I was gonna play this deck till I hit 4 losses. So I want to make sure I at least end evenly. Double Remembrance. Probably keep 1 Thermal Beam, 1 Remembrance. But it looks like it's Casino.deck. It's kind of the new hotness that's been going around. I don't know what the game plan is, what the mulligan is, so I'm just gonna stay with the standard mulligan. Remembrance, Heimerdinger, Flash if we have Heimerdinger.
We playing bilge rules, son?
I don't think this deck is... It doesn't feel particularly strong. I played it a little bit, and I played 7 games and only won 3 of them, so it is fun. Like, if it gets rolling, it's like... It's actually kind of insane how many cards you see. This is probably the only deck in the game where, like, Twisted Fate is probably, like, the star. Like, he's the main win con. Because usually all other decks with Twisted Fate, he's kind of just a support champion. He supports whatever other champion you're running. But this is the only deck I've seen where, like, that's not the case. Jinx feels very weird in this deck. I don't think you flip her that much, but I don't know. I've played against it. I couldn't flip her that much because I was drawing so many cards. Like, I had just weird hands where I just couldn't empty my hand. But that's really lucky, actually, that they pulled that off.
The treasure was in me the whole time.
I'm gonna have to Thermo Beam here, unfortunately. I guess I could Persuade her. No, I'm gonna Thermo Beam. I just want to get rid of it now. They only have Pocket Aces for Pump if they even run it. Oh, there's a couple different lists going around.
Never lost a fair game or played one. Soak it in.
Surprising if they went for that. Alright, so they're going Jury Rig to try and get TF going. So they've drawn 3 cards so far. We'll scout out first. Suit up, sure.
Their guilt is evident.
I want to get rid of TF.
Stand and you have no alibi.
Wow, that's crazy.
Protect Demacia. I'm out.
Problem is now I'm not gonna have a turn. Like getting rid of TF there, so. I'm passing here.
Answers, I have them.
We can double flash. Alright, let's see what we find. Alright, so now the question becomes, I think we go for Remembrance here. We don't go for it. I could kill the 1/1 and get a third turret, but we'll have Remembrance here.
Take me for a spin. Ha ha.
Kind of gonna hope they don't have TF here. I could have went Mage Seeker, killed this. Nice. That's really good. It's like make it rain. Mystic Shot, sure.
Banish the unworthy.
Oh yeah.
Alright. So what do we have here?
Flames that burn twice as hot are twice as hot.
The only way I get punished here is if I do have Jinx, if they have Jinx. They do.
I'm on a roll. Jinx stands for Jinx. Durr. Now it's a party.
Mages can't hide from me.
The teeth means they like you.
Get excited. Discard you. And Mystic Shot you. If that's gonna be the play.
Got me.
My call.
You will be scoured from this land.
We'll get our damage in while we can. The good news is they're in top deck mode now. That's the good news. Yeah, they're kind of out of gas. Like if that's Brash, the 4-drop, then they can't even play her. That's the crazy part. Yeah, we got there. Nice.
Calculated.
It's good. Good, good, good.